Do you believe aliens exist? And if yes, why? Write in the comments what you think about this. Enjoy the show. Story 1. Aside from the whole trillions of galaxies in the observable universe alone thing, remember that Navy military footage that circulated around the internet for years, taken from a fighter jet of a small disc-like object traveling at incomprehensibly fast speeds? And the pilot was literally like, holy shit, what the fuck is that thing? It's so fast. And then the Pentagon officially declassified and released those same videos that had been circulating and said that they still have no idea what those things were. Remember the Arizona lights and how the governor at that time did interviews after he retired being like, yeah, I saw them with my own eyes and they were fucking UFOs, dog. I was an Air Force pilot for years and have never seen anything remotely like that craft I saw. Remember the Las Vegas aliens from earlier this year? Aliens, my dude, they're out there. Story 2. I do believe other life exists somewhere, but I also believe that it will be really, really hard to ever find it, let alone communicate with it. Perhaps so hard that we might as well be alone. Not only distance is working against us, but also time. Story 3. My theory has always been that we, and by we, I mean our planet and the solar system, are off the beaten path of the universe. Let's imagine the occupied universe that knows about everybody else and has trade routes and embassies and people that know each other is to scale the United States. Now, in that scale, our solar system is a speck of dust on top of a grain of sand on top of a pile of rocks in the middle of the desert where nobody has any reason to go. Story 4. There is certainly life in the universe. Some of it is reading this. Do you think you're so special that all the universe only created life one time? Sounds absolutely ridiculous if you think about how many places there are in the cosmos to believe there was only one planet at one time that had life. Story 5. Almost certainly, there is some form of life out there somewhere. It's a numbers game. No matter how small the probability of it having occurred once is, chances are it might have occurred elsewhere. It's the fact that they have to be more advanced than us, like that is the part that I would say no to. Story 6. There are estimated to be around 200 billion trillion stars in the universe. Mathematically, it's impossible that Earth is the only planet where life exists. Now, the degree to which said alien life looks humanoid or is even, by our standards, intelligent is another issue. Story 7. I feel like it's really narcissistic to believe we are the only planet with life. We aren't superior to anything, and the thought of seeing it to believe it is kind of stupid in this instance. Also, if an all-knowing and powerful deity truly exists, would they technically be an alien? That's something I've thought about as a non-religious person. Story 8. Probably. The odds of another planet like Earth where the environment is able to sustain life and allow civilization is incredibly rare, but the universe is so large there's got to be something out there. It's too unlikely we're the only ones. Whether we meet them, almost certainly not. There's only so far we can examine, let alone travel. I doubt that we will interact with any kind of alien for many, many eras. Story 9. Yes. I'm a Christian, and I count God and the angels as aliens, and God may have made more worlds. But even from an evolutionary perspective, how in the world are we the only life forms to evolve? If life could evolve here, surely it would evolve at least somewhere else too. Story 10. Yes, because out of the infinite planets and universes that exist, there has to be some type of intelligent life somewhere. I just don't believe that aliens are the same as you would see in the movies, but instead I think aliens are closer to us where they are in their own planet working on their own politics and economy. Story 11. With the size of the universe as we know it, and it constantly expanding, I think there's only a 0.0001% chance there isn't something else out there. But I doubt there will ever be contact because not only is it so incredibly unlikely that the aliens would resemble anything even close to the sentience of life forms on Earth, but even if they were somehow just as smart or even smarter than us, I feel like the technology required to go from one inhabited planet to another, even if we're in the same half of the Milky Way, is never going to exist. Story 12, life out there somewhere? Yes. Intelligent and doing anything like we are? I lean towards no on that, actually. There are so many things that just happen to work out in our favor that it actually seems very unlikely a species could even make it to this point. For example, what if they were intelligent but had no desire for fun or adventure? What if individuality wasn't even a concept? What if they just never had 7 geniuses to rocket them forward scientifically? No, seriously, you could pick 7 humans in history and take them out of the equation and we would not have the modern society we do at all. It seems these creative genius types are a defective sort of brain, not working normally. The ability to think and model in such abstract concepts might just be a stroke of luck for our human brains. Or maybe they are peaceful, in which case society never cares to advance like ours. War is what makes us so competitive to the point we made rockets that go to space. Or maybe they just eat, sleep, and have sex. Culturally, it just never occurred to them to invest so much in the name of laziness and comfort. Or there are a million other traits that beat intelligence in survival of the fittest. Don't need smarts if you are at the top of the food chain by sheer strength, speed, and power. Story 13. Yes, because the universe is big, and it would be pretty scary to think we're the solely life out of all this space. My nerdy dream is that there's a galactic or intergalactic alliance between high intelligent aliens that live in peace, but we're not part of the club because we're still too primitive. If you ever played Mass Effect, you know what I mean. Story 14. Yes and no. Aliens as we humans portray them? I don't know. Probably not. But other intelligent life forms in this universe? Probably. They're probably not in our solar system or galaxy. Maybe they aren't even in our timeline. Maybe aliens are actually humans thousands of years from now that have figured out time travel. Time is an interesting concept, isn't it? For humans, time is linear while almost everything else around us isn't. We don't live in a linear world. Planets are round. We live and see in 3 dimensions, and we have senses: sight, taste, smell, touch, etc. Then the universe, it's expansive, sure, but it's so expansive that we as humans cannot navigate all of it. How do we know that the universe doesn't repeat itself almost like else in life? Almost everything is a cycle. Almost everything repeats itself. And the thought that the universe would have an ending and a beginning is completely unthinkable to me, because that would mean that the universe is contained in some sort of something. And if it contained in some sort of something, what is that something contained in? And where is that something contained in? The only thing that makes sense to me is that the universe is a great big ball of energy. It expands so big that humans can never explore even 1% of it, but it cycles and it repeats like everything else we know and can verify. So my guess is aliens are us, thousands or maybe even millions of years from now. And when I say now, I mean now as we know it, because strangely, as almost everything seems to be cycled for humans, time seems to be the only thing that is linear. For us, everything else is dimensional. Story 15. Not so much believe, but the math probability of there being life even within our own galaxy, is astronomically in favor of it. Do I believe we've made contact or vice versa with aliens yet? No. Do I believe it's statistically probable we will? Or even if we don't meet them, they're still out there? Yes. Story 16, I believe UFOs exist, because I've seen them. What was driving them, ... It, quote, s hard to say. I think that most phenomenon that have a lot of people experiencing them are most likely real. But I don't think our explanations for those things are always accurate. We just like to guess a lot. Story 17, yes. Sheer probability of large numbers. Earth is, as I understand it is, one of the first generation of planets with the components for our type of life forms could be generated. Several generations of stars need to die to get to the metallicity we have that would be required for a magnetic field that prevents the harsh radiation that would irradiate the surface, etc. But even if this type of planetary configuration is rare-ish in the universe, bigger outer planets protecting Goldilocks zone planets from asteroids' large metal core, and the type of star that isn't too violent and puts out the right types of life that is conducive to life, it's still a mind-bogglingly gigantic galaxy. The estimates of our own galaxy holding hundreds of billions of stars, and our galaxy being average in size. The numbers game alone is against us being alone. I was a hardcore Christian at some point, but I never bought into the creationist arguments. I read a lot about them, though. Their numbers are so laughably tiny. Kent Hovind, the convicted fraudster, is one of my favorites of these quacks because of his lectures using tangible numbers instead of claiming impossibilities. He had example numbers on how improbable it would be for an eyeball to randomly appear, and used that as a counter to evolution. The number of planets where this could happen might be a few orders of magnitude larger than their estimates of how improbable it all is. Now, is that alien life intelligent? That is a different conversation. I count alien to be anything that didn't originate from planet Earth. So asteroid miners of the expanse, future, would still not be aliens. But if we discover bacteria in the oceans of the larger moons in the solar system, that would already count as aliens in my book. And small life forms on other planets is not a question of if it exists, but just when will we discover it. Story 18. Many people point out that we don't really know the odds of life forming. But let's imagine, just for argument's sake, that there are 100 planets in the universe. The exact number doesn't matter. What's important is that it's finite. And we know the universe is finite. Otherwise, our physics would be very different. If the chance of life forming on any given planet is 1%, there would be about a 36% chance that life never emerged anywhere. Even if we increase the number to 1,000 planets with a 0.1% chance of life, there's still around a 36% chance that life never appeared. Now, if the probability of life forming is more like 99% for those 100 planets, the chance of life not emerging is so low that the calculator I'm using just shows 0. The problem is, we don't have enough information. Based on what we do know, we found life on exactly one planet, Earth. And there are sextillions of planets in the universe, according to another commenter. So the best guess we have is that the chance of life is 1 in however many sextillions of planets there are. Anything beyond that is just speculation without a solid foundation. Story 19. The universe is so big, I would imagine on one of the other planets there's a living creature somewhere. It also depends how you define alien. Is an alien to you a living creature that tries to invade or communicate with us? Or is it a living creature, no matter the size, on another planet, that has or doesn't have destructive tendencies, but it never tries to reach us? Story 20. I will say, regardless how it evolved, I have an early 1960s electronics engineering reference manual easily 4 inches thick, describing and explaining the hows and whys of every electrical component. Great details in tube design and construction. Fascinating collection. Yet, in one of the last pages, the transistor gets several paragraphs, which the conclusion that it was so insignificant, it'll never amount to much in the future. Now, something inside of me says, how did this insignificant transistor become the backbone of communications in under 44 years, unless there was some transfer of world technology that turned a clunky transistor out my childhood radio into a 2 billion array of transistors to make a CPU? And how, out the thin air, did Dick Tracy watch technology become real? However it happened, it's pretty cool. Story 21. Yes, we have found life everywhere it is possible, including a lot of places we thought it wasn't possible. 1.3 billion stars have been mapped, and that's a tiny fraction of those actually visible to space telescopes. There's zero chance that even in that small part of the total, there aren't many planets with at least as good conditions as here. So there's no chance that there isn't alien life. We just aren't that special or exceptional. Story 22. Most people are citing statistics which have always been relevant, but allow me to be the first to ram my foot through the door by bringing up the somewhat recently declassified CIA fills on UFOs, now titled UAPs, that at minimum point to the idea of contact with something not presently identifiable as originating from Earth. I'm not saying they for sure visited us and spurred a massive growth spurt in human development, but I do think that's where the conversation is at. Because realistically, it's always been a given that there have to be some kind of aliens out there somewhere. Story 23. I don't believe Earth is the only planet with life, but I'm not sure how many creatures have escaped their gravity wells. There's a paradox called the Great Filter that lays out the things that need to be true for life to develop on planets like Earth, and the number of similar enough planets, and the age of our solar system versus average, and points out life should be common enough for us to have spotted signs. We haven't. What gives? The Great Filter is the hypothetical challenge that either we cleared but don't properly understand as inhibiting development of life or development of spacefaring life, Oregon that we have yet to clear and don't see coming to destroy us. This doesn't even account for life significantly different from Earth's life. I believe aliens exist, but I'm skeptical we'll find any in the next 100,000 years. Story 24. I think they probably do. Intelligent? Perhaps, perhaps not. Here on Earth? No, and I'll tell you why. Not to get too political, but if aliens were on Earth, I think the US president would know. Trump was POTUS, and he can't keep his mouth shut for the life of him. If he didn't blab, there was nothing to blab about. Therefore, no aliens on Earth. Story 25. Yes, life exists elsewhere, and it may be nothing like it is here on Earth. Every living thing that we know of shares the same 6 elements: carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. The existence of life here is directly tied to our atmosphere, our tidal patterns from our moon, our temperate climate, not all life, of course, you go extremophiles, and our orbit around our sun. Our journey to the stars, or at least the technology needed to get us there, would have never happened if we didn't speak and hear as we do, if we weren't competitive, if we hadn't needed weapons or projectiles, if we couldn't contain and control fire, if there weren't flying insects and animals to spark the notion of flight, if we didn't have an industrial revolution, etc., etc. My point being, I think it's a 1 in a million chance that there is life like us out there. But the universe is big enough for a trillion 1 in a million chances, so I certainly won't say it's impossible. Really to the 11th power unlikely that aliens as we think of them are out there. Story 26. Yes, I have a first-hand account. In 2001, it was in Bowling Green, Kentucky at Basil Griffith Park. I watched a completely soundless saucer descend over the water from 45 feet away. There were lights and just sat there without disturbing the water. Me and my girlfriend at the time sat awestruck for a moment and then freaked out. I remember driving away and seeing it in the rear view still there. We didn't talk about it on the way home. We were almost mechanical. When we got back to the dorm, we met our friends who were also a couple. I don't even know why, but we split up to talk about it. Me to the guy and her to the female. Maybe they wanted that. Apparently, we told the exact same story. It was a surreal moment. It was so real. I don't know what to make of it, since I have been searching to see something. Story 27. Yes. Because of the overwhelming mountain of evidence and the fact that countless very senior individuals with direct knowledge from various nations across the world have all publicly confirmed it. One really has to be an imbecile to be blind to it at this point, or at least you must accept you are still completely brainwashed. Story 28, yes. I've watched too much Ancient Aliens, or LOL. In all seriousness, though, the chance that we're the only organism like us in the universe is astoundingly low. Conversely, the chance that another organisms have the tech to come here is also astoundingly low, but we don't really know because we don't know how much we don't know, and thus, it's really hard to gauge. Story 29, I have no basis for a belief in either. Blah blah, so many planets, blah blah blah, my statistics. But see, statistics are a measure of probability, not reality. And the current reality is, we have zero evidence to suggest we're not alone. Unfortunately for the uninitiated, there's such a thing as limited infinite sets, which in very simple terms means that having an infinite amount of something like space-time, which is also a belief and not a fact, by the way, does not intrinsically mean X outcome is guaranteed. So just no to all that fluffy Carl Sagan stuff. Hard reality is, we may just be the mother of all strange coincidences. It is typically considered bad form to lean on special pleading in posing a hypothesis. See the heliocentric model of the universe for why that will get you into trouble. But we honestly can say that life as it exists on Earth is for a fact a product of many specific outcomes, spawned from many interacting systems. But we have zero data to tell us how likely any of this was in the macroscopic. Put a gun to my head and I'll put my chips on there, being other idiots out there screwing up their planets too. It's thermodynamically inevitable, to be honest, but I'm not going to feel good about that bet. Story 30. Yes, whether or not they visited us or are currently here, I don't know. I don't have evidence proving or disproving that, but I can say with some certainty that in the entire universe, we are not alone. In fact, didn't we find like microbes and ice on Mars or something like that? Or was that a theoretical possibility? Either way, there's an uncountable amount of planets in the observable universe alone. That's not counting what we can't see. It'd be foolish to believe our planet is the only one with life, even from a religious standpoint. If you believe in a God, but not in aliens, then you're basically saying you believe in a wasteful God who would create an entire universe of planets, but only put life on one of them. Story 31. I believe other multiple life forms exist, considering the vastness of universe and our minuscule position within it. Perhaps their constitution or elemental makeup is completely different than ours, which likely prohibits them from entering our planet. I don't necessarily think they are the large-headed, slant-eyed humanoid figures we associate with aliens, though I would not be entirely surprised if those archetypes made an appearance one day. I rather look forward to it. Story 32, yeah, it's a simple math problem. No matter how unlikely it is that a star will have all of the necessary conditions for life to form, if it can happen once, it can happen again. With as many stars as there are in the universe, the odds are that life will have to have formed on more than one planet. Now, does that mean that life is as intelligent as us? No. Does that mean humanity will ever make contact with another alien life form? Probably not. But is there life out there in the universe other than on Earth? The math says there almost has to be. Story 33. I do because of the size of the universe, but I think it might be more rare than some people think. I don't necessarily think it's like Star Trek where you have sentient humanoid life forms around every corner. When you factor in everything needed for a planet to develop life at all, and then that life to evolve into sentient beings that don't wind up destroying themselves before a natural disaster hits. Well, it does narrow down the possibilities that being might evolve past the level we have. It's amazing we haven't destroyed ourselves yet at this point. But I do think they are out there. Story 34 depends on what you mean by aliens. Intelligent life comparable to or more advanced than humans. Life forms of some kind? I'd say definitely for hash 2, just based on the sheer amount of things in the universe. Hash 1 is a bit harder. I think it's likely, but I don't know that we'll ever meet. Even if we did, communication or finding a space we can share may be impossible due to environmental requirements for the different species to survive. I mean, we assume aliens would live on an Earth-like planet with Earth-like beings, but life can evolve to live in absurd, to us, places. I don't think aliens have ever visited us, and UFOs abductions are either made up or delusions of some kind. Story 35, yes, and I'm quite certain they have come to visit since there are documented sightings of their UFOs. But it is very much like the situation between civilized society and the indigenous tribes we've agreed to leave alone. People get close to their territory to watch them, or see them from helicopters, but do not make direct contact while they stare up at us with their bows and arrows and banana leaves, barely covering their private parts. To the aliens, we are probably that indigenous tribe with our primitive tech, and they observe from their spaceship. Perhaps there is a galactic alliance out there that has agreed on a no direct contact policy on us. Story 36. Unsubstantiated hypothesis. If you were an alien race and you wanted to be here and known to humans, how would you go about it? A. If you're hostile, you just show up, invade, and eradicate the problem humans. Because you can, and because you don't care about this being a shock to the human race, like Independence Day. B. If you wanted to introduce humans to the galaxy, you'd show up, stay hidden, and very slowly, over at least 1-2 human generations, start to introduce and normalize your existence, until that one day when you suddenly exist and humans aren't freaking out. E.g., for the last 50 years, the U.S. military has said, there are no unexplained alien objects, everything is explainable. Then maybe 5 years ago that changed to, yeah, there's some stuff we can't explain. It's subtle, but it is a difference in posture. Are there aliens? Probability in the vast universe says yes. Are they here already? Who knows, but if they are, we better hope it's option B. Story 37. I'm in the minority here. I think there's a very good chance that microbial life exists elsewhere in the universe, but I'm more skeptical of advanced extraterrestrial life, always reminded of the Fermi paradox. Not only do we not understand the origins of life on Earth, I think we underestimate how incredibly rare it is, notwithstanding the mind-numbing vastness of the universe. On top of that, the chances of life evolving into more advanced forms becomes less and less likely when taking into consideration the planet's changes in climate, environmental pressures, resource scarcity, asteroid impacts, and even the species' propensity toward self-destruction. Story 38. Yes, the odds are good. An alien is such an almost incomprehensibly broad term. People tend to imagine little gray men or some kind of animal or perhaps a monster. But why does it have to resemble anything like us, with drooves like ours? Hunger, greed, destruction, curiosity, conquest, etc. They don't even have to be beings in the third dimension. We might have absolutely no way to perceive them whatsoever, even with science and tools. I don't think we'll ever make contact, though, because just as good as the odds of our universe, reality having life outside of ours, those same wide odds, along with our limited abilities as flesh sacks used to perceive things outside the flesh sack, by a wad of gelatinous meat running on squirted juices and static, make meeting quite infinitesimal. Story 39. Yes, and as ex-Gov officials have been telling us since WW2, the US Gov has alien craft and bodies at Area 51 and other secure locations. We even had a hearing in the Senate about it just last year. Same story as always. It's real. It's the biggest cover-up in human history. And before all the antis jump on me, I will remind you of the Fermi paradox. That's weird, isn't it? It's the scientific expectation that they are here, and for them not to be is literally considered a paradox. Well, there's a very simple solution to this paradox. It's not a paradox, we are simply being lied to about it. I wish someone would remind people like Neil Tyson about this, because the way he and others in the scientific community dismiss this topic is literally scientific malpractice. Then there's the people that say a secret this big could not be kept. In fact, it's the easiest secret in the world to keep. It's leaked many times. People simply refuse to believe it. There's no secret that's easier to keep than one that people won't believe. I'll also leave this here. Don't say there isn't any evidence. There's tons of it. People just choose to ignore it. Story 40, yes. The size of the universe is incomprehensible. The vastness of space is so big that the human mind is yet to understand the scale and sheer size of it. I mean, take a look at our planet on its own. It is a great and massive planet with 8 billion people. My theory is that aliens do exist, and it's either they exist in a form we can't comprehend, or they are just as technologically advanced as we are. Either they are ahead by a few thousand years, or we are the ones ahead. Hence, we have not made contact because of technological and scientific limitations. Story 41. When my ex-boyfriend broke up with me, we were together for 3.5 years, and I'd been thinking about breaking up with him. We'd been arguing a lot, and it was my last year of college. He was trying to discourage me from going to grad school. I was just nervous about the idea because he was my first boyfriend. When he did it, I was crushed at first. However, I quickly realized it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Nearly 5 years later, I have my master's in social work, and I'm a licensed social worker. Take that, loser. Story 41. Yes, but not in the traditional alien invasion scenario we're familiar with. If aliens are truly visiting us in their UFOs, I think they're doing what we would do: observe from afar and take samples to test dirt, animals, etc. If they aren't, then they exist somewhere in a different galaxy that we haven't explored yet. I just don't believe Earth is the only planet that is sustainable for life. Story 42, kind of. I mean, the fact that humans exist says to me that there's a chance life also sprouted elsewhere, but it also says that we might be extremely lucky. There's also no telling how many times the universe has restarted itself since the dawn of creation itself. So yeah, there's a chance alien life exists, but I doubt we'll ever find it, if it even exists in the same time period as us, just because of how close to infinite the universe is. Story 43. They absolutely exist, and maybe more primitive ones in our solar system. Moon of Jupiter, for example, has thermal vents in its ice cover. There could be primitive life there, like there is here in those places. Visiting Earth is another story. Now, if aliens were visiting Earth, meaning they can travel through space and time, they would certainly have the abilities of stealth, not to be seen. So either they are coming for our resources and would wipe us out, or they are going to land on the White House lawn, pop the hatch, and say, "Nice to meet you. We are from 5 light years away and mean you no harm." Flying tic-tacs and things going on that make no sense are just that, things that make no sense. Why would aliens let themselves be seen if they have the technology to get here? They have the ability to cloak themselves. It's one of the first military technologies we continuing to enhance to the point we can barely be seen now. I think this is the only logical conclusion. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it. Be sure to write comments and share your stories.